Hey guys, welcome to another session of Epic 7. This is my initial thoughts video for Ilynav. This is not her. This is not her. This is Moro, part of Ilynav's lore. She took care of Ilynav and basically she ended up dying, long story short, and Ilynav decided that she's gonna spend the rest of her life killing dragons. So in a way similar to Senya's side story in my opinion, or Senya's background story. And yet these I have no idea why she's holding a baguette without the bag. I don't know, like this is really random, but I know that a lot of people want her to be a limited hero now or something. Freaking degens, look at the baguette, not the other stuff. Anyways, this is about Ilynav, but you know, someone in my community is like saying that you have to talk about Moro. I'm like, I don't know. I get it, guys, I get it. Ilynav's got a mole. I actually thought that was like something I drew on Photoshop. Anyways, if you don't know what I'm talking about, it's okay. I thought I drew a black dot somewhere, and I realized, oh wait, never mind, that's part of her. So let's reel back a bit. So a couple of these initial thoughts videos I've had in the past couple while, you know, I've been underwhelmed, right, to say the least. And you know, today I don't feel like being emo jagging, right? I definitely think that Ilynav is a mark missed. Originally when I saw her kit and this morning, I was like, you know what? You know, injury coming back and Mort really failing that. I was thinking that, you know what, maybe she'll be different, right? Lower or quicker cycling for her injury skill. A potential to unleash it at any given moment. I'll talk about that during the kit. I was thinking that, okay, maybe she will make injury work. And then the damage mods came out. As I'm making this recording, the data mine is out, and Maffy already plugged in all the numbers into the damage calculator, so you can definitely check it out in the Maffy damage calculator, the one I do use and I think most players use. I plugged in some numbers and it's actually relatively high stats that I gave her, and she does like pretty low damage if she doesn't proc Elbrus. So I know people already didn't really like her kit, but the damage is definitely on the lower side for the amount of stats I put into her. So I definitely think that this might be a miss. Now whether or not, you know, you're gonna ask, like, Jake, are you gonna pull for her anyway? You know, that's what I said about Senya, right? Because like Senya's kit, like I kind of liked it. I kind of like the uniqueness of it. I actually like Ilynav's kit too, but I made a mistake on Mort saying that I think he's gonna be good. But that was also when Mort was released at the beginning of their change in Frenzy for RTA, and so therefore his effectiveness is definitely not as quick as the aggro nature of the Frenzy changes that Baguette implemented to RTA. So they actually nerfed Mort in a way that's kind of indirectly nerfed. Of course, Mort has his own issue because RNG hero, similar to Senya, and again, yet similar for Ilynav. So I don't know what Baguette is doing for these knights. I really do feel that like they're just like one buff away from being just like a common pick. I'm not talking about meta. I'm not asking for meta heroes all the time, but like a useful pick in a situation where no one else will overshadow them in that area. That's what I'm like hoping for. But again, these are not the MLs, and ML Kawazu at the same time has his damage mods. His kit looks really good, like just right off the bat, very clean, easy to understand, and his damage mods were released. I saw some people, you know, plug in some like just some numbers for his damage. Holy crap, he's crazy. If you want my thoughts on the ML Kawazu video, it'll be a separate video from this one. Of course, you're here because you see the title. It's talking about Ilynav. Anyways, let's get into it. I just wanted to lay out that background. Again, I'm not going emo jagging, but I'm not gonna go over hype jagging. I'm gonna try to be realistic. Anyways, you guys know how I do this. My initial thoughts are always the pros and cons of the hero, what I think is missing in the current meta. So I try to be as balanced as possible in my presentation. First things first, you'll notice that she is a Gemini, same as Mort, same as Charles. It's interesting that these heroes specifically are getting the crit rate imprint concentrations like quite a bit. I think Mort has it as well. Mort, Charles, and herself. So it is quite interesting, but they already have a really high base of 27 crit rate, as you guys can see there. The stats for Geminis are always pretty good, except the attack. Now, what gave me hope was that I saw that, oh, she's an HP scaling bruiser, so I'm like, okay, that's good, because Charles is, you know, Charles and now Mort, Charles is not HP scaling bruiser, but Charles does have really high damage mods. Very high damage mods to compensate his low attack. So Charles worked, and Charles still technically works, but RNG heroes are not what people really want. I guess except Remnant Violet. Or Moonlight Dreamblade in general, like Bruiser Arby's. But like that's why Charles fell off, right? So the very fact that like I feel like Senya, Mort, and then her, they all follow like the same kind of line, but Smilegate clearly sees Charles is kind of pushed out. I am curious what they are thinking with these knights. Like it's clear that they want some aggro, like more aggro knights, and I like that, and that's part of the knight kit I like. Is that they're aggro, they're supportive in terms of like team-wide buffs, team-wide stuff like that. Like almost every knight you could think of has abilities like that. They're very I guess they're less selfish than other classes. Let's say for example thieves. But yeah, anyways, yeah, Unis. Long story short, you can see the HP very good, 6,100. It's not high as like let's say Crow, FCC and stuff like that, but very good. And the defense is always very high on these knights. The speed at 109 definitely gives them an edge in terms of knights in general. It's just the attack is lower. But like I said, like it gave me hope because I'm like, okay, HP scaling bruiser, so you know you don't need the attack, so that's perfect, right? It kind of corrects what Charles's, I guess, the flaw in Charles's kit. I'm putting that in air quotes, the flaw. Skill 3 is called Repel. Attacks all enemies mercilessly and grants an increased critical hit damage to all allies for 2 turns, and an immunity buff for herself. So then damage dealt is increased proportion to the caster's max health. And like I said, I do have the damage mods here. I'll read them for the video recording, but as you guys are watching this, I'm pretty sure you guys have access to that as well. So Repel is at a 0.7 attack rate, so that's pretty good. So I mean, you don't really need to focus on attack there. But anyways, when I get into the damage formula or the damage mods at the end of this video, you guys will see like it still matters, but it's just very underwhelming. It's at a 12% HP scaling, which is pretty high for an AoE. It is pretty high. It's good. It's good enough. 4-turn cooldown, very standard for an S3. Not too long, not too short. So it's our standard 4 turns. The immunity buff is 2-turn, so that's very nice to have. Just having that is good. So if you start off with immunity, you use that 1 turn, maybe you do the S3 right away. I'm assuming that people will. The crit damage buff here will obviously not just work for her, but will work for all her support. Now in the video that they have, they showed like Landy and stuff like that in the team, and a Maid Chloe. So you get a crit damage buff, you get an attack buff. Like pretty straightforward. I think crit damage buff is getting more popular. Crit rate buff definitely. Well, anyways, that's a whole other issue. I won't get into that. So it's okay. It's okay. I mean, crit damage buff is good. If we pair it with an attack buff, that's very solid. So I can see her being kind of used in places, especially its AoE. And she already attacks all enemies, so it doesn't proc like let's say a Politis or a Celine. So very nice. So getting that aggro first turn while buffing, I like that aspect about Charles too. Charles is S3 doing the attack buff for the full party, defense for self. So you can see like a similar thing going on here, right? So in terms of that aspect, it's an AoE hit. It AoE buffs the team, but then it self buffs yourself as well. So kind of like Charles. But again, HP scaling of 12%, like I said, and the 0.7 attack rate, so it's much lower. 30% raw damage. Standard stuff on the S3 if you mola it to a +5. This is the S3 animation. I do love her animation. There's like 3 or 4 stages of it. Her charging up, and then there's like a sky spear thing coming down, and then this one I took a screenshot of because it reminded me of why I really loved Ravi, Fire Ravi's S3, because of that kind of sketchy feel. This retains that, and I love it. I like this a lot. So as part of the S3. So S2 is called Punish, and I think that again, this is she really does echo a lot of, like I said, all those Gemini Knights. She really echoes it for me. Punish is inflicting injuries. It's a single target skill. So injuries, as we know, at the last sentence here, injuries decrease max health of the target by up to 20% every time this skill is used. This is a different writing, so the injury tuning for each hero is different. So Mort's AoE injury on the S3, but it's 15%. This one is 20%. So in terms of like injury in general, I mean, yeah, that's better. You cut down the up to, right? The thing is that the key is up to. So you have to do the enough damage in order for you to get the full 20% of their HP lost. Okay, so that becomes an issue, because when we get to the damage formula, that becomes an issue. The other thing is that people noted and did test that injury does not apply unless damage is dealt, in terms of like there's a number popping up as you hit the hero. So in terms of going through a barrier, if you don't bypass the barrier, none of the damage with like dealt to the barrier actually applies the injury. So it's something that Smallgate might have to look into. I'm not saying that this is broken. I'm just saying that maybe they need to look into that. Maybe like a barrier halves the effectiveness of it. I don't know. Some people are thinking that that would fix Mort if his S3 injury would just go through a barrier. I originally, when I rated Mort, I thought that was how it worked. Because damage is damage, right? It's like you take out a barrier damage, it's still damage, but apparently like you have to take it very literally, that you have to do the number damage. So that's unfortunate. So maybe as they're looking into buffing the Katie's Hunt, which is going to be in the future, I don't know how long now, but they're gonna look into kind of remodifying the sets. Perhaps they may look into changing how injury mechanic works, because right now I feel it is a bit scuffed. Barrier right now is something that Smallgate keeps pushing. Kisei, like blue Kisei, had a barrier buff, and then Carrot right now is very dominant. Researcher Carrot, very dominant and has a barrier buff. So it's like it feels like you can't get around barrier. ML Cowerick literally just released. His S2 is AoE barrier. So it's like they gotta change how injury affects. Either you make it go through a barrier but make the effectiveness of it lower, or you somehow change it up. I don't know. It's odd. So that's the thing. But let's presume that there is no barrier when you're using Ilynav. Okay. All right. So FCC is in almost every single defense comp, Guild War and Arena alike. Most people run FCC in there. FCC is still a top pick in RTA, so then that makes Ilynav already pushed to the side again, and that's the unfortunate part. Right? So you introduce a kit that's already not really effective, and you introduce it into the meta that's all barrier based. So they really have to fix that. Increase the defense of the castle for 2 turns, so that's very good. The Gemini Knights have high base defense. So like you could, because she's an HP scaling bruiser, so you could really look into getting as much HP as possible. Maybe give her around about 1200 defense, which is kind of low, but it's just assuming that the HP will compensate for that defense, and then she gets a defense buff anyway, 60% of that 1200. So it's not a terrible stat line to hit. It's about 1200, 1300 defense. I think that would be very solid, but I think it's not going to be super possible. You're going to sacrifice a lot of stats. But anyways, continuing. The severity of the injury proportional to damage dealt. Yeah, we know that. Okay, so the other aspect of this, I like it, is that the skill cooldown is decreased by 2 turns, only 10 soul burn. So in a fight where, you know, all of your heroes are, you know, doing their turn, and maybe you do have her on Elbrus, maybe even counter, you get enough souls and you can soul burn this almost indefinitely. It's pretty good. This cooldown, if you +3, it's only 3 turn cooldown, 2 turns, so almost every other turn you can get this. But that's not where the punish ends. So with all the kind of like the negative, the cons I talked about injury, let's say you do fight someone without a barrier. This is where her skills, her S1 and the S2, I think has the potential. It's almost like Charles. It's almost like Charles in that sense. And again, I think Elbrus is her best in slot. So skill 1 is Rush. Oh wait, sorry. I should go back to here. I forgot to talk about the damage mods here. So damage mods on the S2 is the highest damage mods. It is 18% of your HP and is at a 1 times attack rate, power of 1. So that's actually very strong. It's good enough to be a single target nuke, but again, low base attack, and the emphasis on the HP scaling means that you're gonna have to pull some of that damage out of the attack. And assuming that you don't always pair her with an attack buff, it is better to go with crit damage over the high attack anyway, or higher HP. So crit damage or HP mix of attack will give you the best result in terms of damage. Yeah, because just situationally, you don't know if you can always fit an attack buffer in, so you probably don't need that. Yeah, so those are the damage mods, and then the S1 Rush attacks enemy with the spear. Damage dealt increases proportionally to the caster's max health. And may as well talk about the damage mods right now. This is at a 8% HP, so that's 8% is actually still good in terms of like the HP scaling bruisers, Ambitious Tywin, FCC, the ones that do scale off HP. 8% is good for an S1. Attack rate is very low though at 0.7. So that's almost Alencia level. Alencia is at 0.5, but it is higher. So she does definitely emphasize more attack than, let's say, Alencia. So it's still okay. Alencia is a warrior though, but I just compared it because she has low attack scaling. Damage up by Rush another 30% into raw damage, and then Punish also 30%. But if you continue reading here, damage up proportionally to cast max health, and then when this skill is used, if it is not triggered by a dual attack, has a 50% chance to use Punish instead of Rush, and then this skill does not trigger a dual attack. So using S1 will not trigger a dual attack, but if you pull her into a dual attack, it won't use Punish. But on counter, so if you counter, if you Elbrus counter, you will have a 50% chance to do Punish. So again, there's the RNG element. So it reminds me of kind of like Charles's smash proc. And EE on Charles really changed him up, especially when he was very effective. So perhaps if they fix, I think where Ilynav is right now is if they fix how injury works in general, somehow changing up the barrier interaction, or just in general, and then what was I gonna say? Yeah, honestly, changing that up, I think is almost enough for me to be convinced that she will be at least as annoying as Charles, if not more now, just because if injury is fixed, then this skill could potentially just be more effective than Charles's smash proc. In EE on her, if they change, okay, sorry, that was my point. If they change the way injury works and they give her a pretty solid EE, I'm not saying that it has to be like, you know, increase the proc rate chance here for Punish. I'm not saying that it has to be exactly how Charles works, but if they give her an EE, I think she can be usable. The S3 I don't mind because it does AoE buff, self buff, which is immunity buff, which is really good, and then it does AoE damage. So it's like the damage is not like super low that is unusable, but it's just not super good. But it's okay because if she has a supportive element and if her emphasis is on the S2, S1 kind of proc, then I think that she can work. Now here's the disappointing part. I'm going to talk about the damage mods in a bit. All right, so on paper, if you don't know what, you know, 0.7 attack rate at an 8% health scaling looks like, on paper I think she looks okay. All right, I keep saying that on Senya's part. I admit for my video for Senya, it's just because she's a babe. I really liked her. I like Senya more than her in terms of like, you know, which one's more waifu, but she's cooler, and that's what I like about it. And this is why I emphasize this screen. I even did some feathering and masking to make it all look nice, where she's kind of like the spotlight. I love that pose. I think that's super cool. Her animations are spot on too. It's quick. She's like this freaking ninja with dual blades. Like she has so much potential to be super hype. The issue is that it's been a whole year. Everybody wanted her, and all of a sudden it's like, well, she's not even that good. In the terms of like Landy as a character versus Ilynav, I would have been happier if Ilynav got the limited slot. You know what I mean? Like if they wanted to put a limited hero in episode 3, I would have been happier that Ilynav is limited and she had a better kit. I think I would have been a lot happier, to be honest. But I remember when Landy came out as a limited hero, I was like, what? Who is this? Like, why is this like thrust in my face? Anyways, let's talk about the artifact first, and then we'll get into it. So with the collab coming, and apparently we've been told by the community managers, it's gonna be a hype collab. Now let's not you know, boost our expectations to super high, because I know there would be some people that are gonna be upset at whatever it is, because everybody's upset at something. But just because of that's coming out, and Senya banner, I mean, if you pulled for Senya and you got her quick, awesome. I pitied Senya. Ilynav, the artifact is weird. The hero looks like usable, maybe at the most. So and then now we're getting closer to the collab. A lot of people are skipping her, I think. I really want her to be good. I feel like I'm not being emo jagging. Hopefully you realize I'm not being emo jagging here. I actually really think she's cool, and I think her kit can work. I love RNG elements to a hero. We know that the RNG elements are always tuned up to, like, you know, double when you set these heroes on defense. But the issue is, like, if she's on defense, like, is she gonna really work? Is she gonna carry the weight that Charles carries on a defense team? I'm not super convinced about that one. I think she's slightly more needs more tuning if she wants to get to Charles' kind of RNG level. The max version of this reads the crit rate is increased by 15%, so that's just flat. You get that at level 1, you get that at max, but the damage dealt when a critical hit is made with a single attack, so it has to be single target, increase the damage of the next attack by 20%. It's not even going to be good on her. Her damage is already very suffering, so like, you just imagine you just put a portrait on her, so just ignore the crit rate, just pretend you got max imprints or your gear is really that good. She's got the crit rate. It's not super great. So the artifact is not something that you would want to pull for. I would definitely not recommend pulling for. It needs that Black Hand of the Goddess, the Cowrick artifact buff, kind of, for it to shine, I think. But you know, it's okay. Like, not all artifacts need to be meta. Not all artifacts need to be good. But then, like I said, the kind of condition to summon this hero now becomes much less valuable. Like I said, if the artifact and the hero both aren't good and she's not a limited hero, I can definitely see a lot of people skipping this one. Oh, I just want her, man. Small gate, why? I waited a whole year, man. Oh, gosh. Okay, anyways, let's get into the data. So as you can see, you have Ilynav selected, and trusty Maffy is always very, very good. So we're gonna just trust the damage formula. Everything's working. I'm gonna turn off the crit damage buff, as you see me checking there near the bottom left of the screen there. I'm gonna check it off for now. Alright, so basically I give it 2,500 attack. Now, for those who build Charles, even at an I-90 gear, you roughly know that these are like achievable stats, but like almost no higher. Okay, so let's make this a flat 280, right? For demonstration's sake, so we got a 1500 defense target, right? Defense at 1500. It's pretty standard, and then caster HP at 18,000. Maxed Mola here, as you can see, a mass skill enhance, and then look at the damage, right? It's at 5,212 for 1500 damage. No adamant shield, no Aureus. Let's increase the crit damage buff, because most likely she'll do the S3 first, get that crit damage buff for the whole team and herself, so hopefully her Alber's procs with the crit damage buff. And now we have 6,143. That's the S2, like I said, the highest damage, and then the S1 is at 3,400. S1, it's very, very minimal chip damage. I've seen Last Rider Crow, non-crit by the way, Last Rider Crow do about 2,000 damage on like a 1500 defense hero. On a crushing hit, of course, but like near that much. So like with a critical hit at 280 with a crit damage buff, that's very low for the S1 on a 1500 defense hero. And then S3 is AoE, so this is more forgivable, 4,185, and then you have 6,143. For demonstration purposes, again, pretend you're not on Elbrus, pretend let's use Portrait of Savior. That's the damage you're getting. So if you put her on her own artifact, then, you know, like you would still need to do a single target. It has to crit first before it proc. So you may as well just go with Portrait, or at the most a Symbol of Unity if you plan to bring her into some kind of ice heroes. Oh, one important note is that the injuries do work even if you miss. So that's something that their official video pointed out. So that is definitely important. So if you bring her into an ice fight, or you get yourself cornered in RTA drafting and they have an ice hero, just note that the S2 does ignore the miss. But I do believe that, it's not like a debuff, so it ignores resistance or effectiveness. The issue is that the injury is based on damage dealt. So if you miss, obviously lower damage, so therefore you're causing lower injuries as well. So that's just something to keep in mind. So I mean, look, I'm being very lenient on the stats, right? So like 2,500, again, we're thinking about like a, you know, 1,200 defense at 18,000 HP, 2,500 attack, and 280 crit damage on immunity for first turn, maybe a speed set. Maybe you could think about counter set, but that's getting to a place where it's like very, very hard to use. But maybe a counter set. I can definitely see it happening. Increase the attack buff. Now attack buff with crit damage buff. No Portrait this time on a 1500 defense hero. 7,481, and then the S3 becomes a bit more usable. But again, this is the S3 doesn't count because you technically don't get the crit damage buff on the S3. You get it after. So, but this is including that. So you focus on the S2, S1. S2 getting to okay level, but again, we haven't turned on Aureus, so let's do that. Oh wait, oh sorry, my bad. Aureus was on the full time. Sorry, Aureus was on the full time. So 20 defense. I didn't know. I actually didn't know. My bad. Scuffed. So that looks much better. All right, so let's turn down the attack buff. So attack buff. Okay, so basically the attack buff is basically with Aureus on. Without the attack buff, it's like with Aureus off, right? So you just saw the numbers there. So that is, yeah, damage transfer, let's say, yeah, back to Aureus. But yeah, okay, so actually let's talk about without Aureus, because that's important too, right? So like, what if they don't have an Aureus? How much damage? You know, that's okay, but let's say you don't get the crit damage buff. I mean, 1500 defense. You know what? That's actually usable, but I'm skeptical about the stats. Achieving the stats. The S2 is usable. S1, again, very, very minimal trip damage for 280 crit damage, and we're turning back on 4,200. You know what? Like I said, I think I stick to what I said when I was talking about her S1. If she gets an EE and they fix the mechanics of injury, I think she can be okay. I feel like it's like it should end with I think she could be good, but I think she can be okay. It's more of just situational. I think she'll be a cool hero to use, like, you know, the second week of her release if you get her, and then again pending buff. But yeah, this is pretty much it. I mean, okay, so let's get that damage transfer back. 20%, and let's get a damage reduction of adamant shield level at least, or even at the most, I don't know, C armament, 16%. So it cuts down a lot, right? What can we do 20,000 HP? I mean, I've seen 20,000 HP Charles. I mean, you lower some other stuff, but 20,000 HP, yeah, it's like it's pretty hard, man. It's getting to like a really difficult kind of achieving like stat, like increase the 200 stat, like attack doesn't really help much. Attack buff at that point. Yeah, with Adamant and Aureus, you pretty much do no damage. And then Aureus is one of FCC's like must-have artifacts. So again, the issue is the barrier. I think the biggest stumbling block is barrier. She has technically lower issues for me right now in retrospect compared to Mort, because she can soul burn the S2, so quicker cooldown. The S1 has that interesting proc rate, 50% proc to get into another injury. So I feel that in terms of the Mort's weakness of recycling the injury, she doesn't have that issue as much. Her damage is okay, nothing too spectacular. Her damage is okay. She brings team-wide support, and she self-buffs, 2 different self-buffs, and both are good self-buffs. I want to say she's cool. I just want to say she's cool, man. I think that's it. I've been kind of like dragging this out in terms of like just me having a dilemma in my mind. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. And I know you guys like Moro, alright? You guys like Moro more than her. I definitely think, like in summary, I definitely think that it's more of a disappointment in terms of like we waited for her for a really long time, and I think she failed to deliver. I think Smilegate could have overtuned her just a bit more. Even if it was bait before a collab, heck yeah, you know? Like just give it, like the character design is solid. Everybody likes her design, I think. And then say I feel like it's just a bit upsetting. It just adds to the, okay, we gotta wait for the collab, that kind of feeling. ML Kawazu is the next video I'm making. If you guys are wanting to hear my thoughts on that, in summary, he's just a lot easier to understand that he's good compared to Ilynav, like trying to make excuses that she could be okay. ML Kawazu just works out right off the bat. Anyways, that's it for my thoughts on it. Thank you guys for watching. If you guys have Discord, check out the Discord server. Follow me on Twitter and subscribe to YouTube if you haven't. I'll see you guys next time.